live. 3, 2, 1. Tam, I want to ask you, bro. Okay, so we're gonna delve deep into your boxing journey. How long you been boxing for, bro?
Oh, how long, man? We started when we probably was 17. I'm now 47, so we're looking at what? Probably from the late 90s onto now, isn't it? So we're looking at 46. How many years back?
So I met Tam when I was about 18, and I met him at the mosque when he was boxing. So now we're in our 40s, mid 40s. So, but bro, have you been boxing consistently through that time, or has it been on and off?
So I've been boxing from 17 consistently about 23. I'd say about 23, and then on and off because I was living in the Middle East, on and off until I came back here, and then I started again in my 30s. And I've just been boxing now. I mean, from my 30s, basically, early 30s, consistently fighting.
And bro, like, okay, so from the boxer that I knew you when you was boxing at the age of 18 to now, completely different. What have you learned along the way in your boxing journey, bro, that you found when you used to box at the age of 18 or 19 to now from 30 and above?
So I think when you are 17 and you've started, you have no idea of kind of ring IQ. I think ring IQ comes an experience that comes.
Sorry, bro. So ring IQ is what, bro?
So ring IQ is knowing about having the knowledge of how to move around the ring, the knowledge of the fighting. Actually, how to read the fight, how to read your opponents, what to do when you come across this opponent, actually thinking as you're fighting. Whereas, when you're 18, 17 and you're boxing, you're not even thinking about any strategy or anything like that. You're just trying to you're just throwing whatever, you're just trying to knock the guy out or beat him, but there is no thought behind it. Whereas ring IQ is actually knowing how to manage that fight, where to move, how to move, and all of those kind of things.
Bro, was that taught to you, or is it something that you picked up along the line because you was consistent?
I think, okay, so it was not taught to me. You pick this up by being with teachers and being consistent and so on. Of course, when you do, I think experience teaches you ring IQ, but then you start looking and studying that as you gain experience, you start to really study that. And I actually feel, I think maybe the last 10 years, I really, really studied it, looking at different fighters, actually looking at how to deal with, shorter fighters, how to, I actually even totally rewired how I fought actually. And of course,
Bro, all right. So, okay, let me, in going into a sparring session, okay, what's your thought process like? How do you prep yourself, bro?
So look, I think when someone's sparring, firstly, or if you're boxing, you have to understand some of the physical stuff that happens to you, and these are stress aspects. So, for example, if I know I'm going to have a spar and I know that some of these guys are going to be there, I don't actually like facing them because you find that, right? So you will have these kind of stress reactions. You need to be aware of them. So, for example, you might have this traditional stuff. Usually it's breaking wind, going to the toilet, and all this kind of stuff. This is actually a stress reaction. In fact, if you study a lot of soldiers when they fought, they'll one of the things that they will say, they will actually crap themselves. So you find you see this. So if I see that, I'm like, okay, these are butterflies. This is absolutely normal, and actually just normalizing and knowing that this is absolutely good. In actual fact, it's even good that you have that because you're nervous, and that's a healthy nervousness because you have to be a little bit on edge. If I'm not nervous or having a little bit, then I'm like, okay, why am I not feeling this? So this is not a good sign for me. Now, I also know, of course, that when you are sparring, you've sparred a lot, and every week you're doing that. That edge is taken off. So you might not even feel those butterflies because you're doing it every day, almost like, all right, or every week. So it's okay, it's less so. But that's one aspect of that, of the spar. Then, of course, secondly,
okay, all right. So wait, hold on. What does it feel like to be thumped in the face, bro?
Bro, look.
How do you manage that?
So look, firstly, when you're being punched in the face, it's actually the whole thing about being punched in the face is it's actually the thought of being punched in the face is probably more painful than being punched in the face.
Yeah.
Because being punched in the face, it's like, all right, okay, your head just goes back and that's it, or you might just see it and that's it, just move on. You might not even notice it. Yeah. Only once or twice where I've been punched in the face where you're really, your toes tingle, but, or, there's, literally like a flashlight, but that rarely happens, and I always wear headgear anyway on Espa. So when you're looking at some of these things, the thought before the punch arrives, the build up to it is actually less than the punch itself, and that's what people don't realize.
Wait, hold on. That's quite an interesting point. Okay, so how are you able to slow that down and think? Okay, do you think whilst you're going through that, is it okay just thinking about being punched in the face? Or like what I'm trying to say is this: when you're going through the emotion, you have no time to think. You're just reacting, right? And as you're reacting, so punches come towards you that you're trying to move out of the way. It's rapid, it's fast. How do you slow that down and think, okay, right? How do you stay composed under pressure whilst you've been hunted down?
Okay, so firstly, look, I think a lot of it comes down to experience. But let's say, right, if you've been doing this for a while, firstly, you have to accept that you're going to be punched in the face. It's like, going out in the rain, you're going to get wet. That's one aspect of it. So you accept those kind of things. Almost like you accept your own mortality, almost. The second thing is, when you are boxing, it's not the saying that like, you're just going to get hit and the punches are coming. That's not how fighting works. You're managing that fight. So he's not just attacking me. I'm managing that fight. Yeah. I'm controlling distance. I'm throwing. So I'm an active participant in that fight. So when it's not just punches are coming towards you, no, I'm watching. I know that punch is coming. I'm reading it. So it's not like I'm not seeing it. The ones that as a lot of fighters will tell you, the ones that knock you out is the ones that you don't see. But most of the ones you're catching, you're seeing them, and it's not like, you got punched, so what? Move on. That's what it is. So when you're saying it's not as, the way you're saying like you're just reacting, you're not. You're thinking through, and that's the whole thing. What you're trying to do is giving yourself that split second of time when you're thinking through as the punches are coming on, or even as you're punching, where you're then, okay, I've been hit here. What do I do? Do I throw this or do I throw?
Is that, bro? Does that come through like it's like a split instant through? Now that you've timed yourself, now you know what to expect. Go on.
So that distance that you create, and you can apply this in life in general, is what you're trying to do. You're trying to achieve that calm in that storm, because you're getting, let's say, I'll give you an example, right? So I injured myself. I used to fight long. I used to fight on the outside a lot. And I injured myself. And I remember, for a while, because I couldn't box, I was really quite, down about it, because I couldn't move because of my knee. But then I thought, okay, let me rewire this. Let me rewire the whole way I fight. So I turned myself into like a counter puncher. And the way I did that was someone who reacts to the punch. So you throw and I'll react by throwing something back. Okay. Whereas being an outside fighter, you're just outside on the ring and you're moving around, you're popping the jab or something like that, long, and with a long jab, and you're just popping him. Yeah. So when I did that, the way I did that, firstly was getting a lot of the novices, and I would be in the corner. And a bit like Derek Chisora, he goes in the corner. He sits comfortable in the corner, and just getting the novices just to throw punches, and I'm slipping, getting caught, getting hit. And then once I got used to just catching the punches or whatever, then it got easy. And then you would sit in the corner. I would sit in the corner, or sometimes a whole round, 2 rounds, whatever, just catching, slipping, all this kind of stuff. So once you do that, I'm very comfortable, being under that pressure. And actually thinking, okay, this is what I'm going to do, because I've gone through that. But I started with a novice. Now it's like if I see someone who's throwing, I'm like, it doesn't faze me, because I'm used to it. I made myself uncomfortable. Once you get used to being uncomfortable, you can deal with those things. So it's not like if you've never boxed before and you're being punched, of course there's going to be. But when you've done it a lot, for years or whatever, it's like, all right.
Bro, so, okay, so what kind of, in your training, how do you sharpen those skills? So for example, do you do a lot of, what does your bag work look like, your pad work? What does what's a typical drill that you would go through to just hone those skills, bro?
So, firstly, look, as you get older, I do a lot. When you're in your 30s or when you're in your 20s, you train differently. So I train I train very, very differently. I don't actually do a lot of bag work, and if I do bag work, I'll be careful of my hands in the sense that there's going to be very controlled. I'm doing a drill or I'm doing something like that. But a lot of the stuff that I do, stretches, mobility exercises where I'm slipping, all of this kind of head movement, fight
agility.
You got fight ball, which is just testing your reactions. All of those because those are the things I'm going to need. Footwork drills. I don't ignore the footwork drills, and I'll do a lot of shadow and all of this kind of stuff. Just looking at those kind of things, the steps, the slips, how you move your hip, all of those kind of things. Much more so than really just doing bag work. Sometimes pad work is nice, and the rest of it I'll incorporate in the spa because that's real. That's the realest thing you're gonna get.
Bro, all right. So what about your because a lot of people say that you need a good cardio. Like, so do you sprint a lot? Do you do your runs or like what?
Look, so I'm not saying that if you're going to fight amateur, you need to do your sprints. Yeah. I don't necessarily, some people, talk about endurance, the 5K or whatever. That, okay, is fine. Don't get me wrong. I think the old school ways, the way they did it, where they did a lot of 5K runs, all this kind of, that's fine. I'm not saying that you shouldn't necessarily do it. But I think all of these things, I think sprints definitely, but I don't do that because I think to myself that, sparring, there's two things that you don't take into account, which sprinting doesn't really account for, which is adrenaline.
Okay.
Adrenaline does not get recreated.
How do you manage that? Or
think to myself, if you look at, for example, again, one doesn't compare oneself to Prince Nassim, but Prince Nassim never really ran a lot. He did a lot of his road work, as it were, his conditioning in the ring through sparring.
A lot of agility drills and stuff like that.
So for me, and remember, I reckon to myself that a lot of that stuff is about controlling in the spar, where you're controlling your calmness, and when you're calm, you can, if you learn to calm yourself down and manage the adrenaline, you can actually manage. You won't gas out. You won't do it, because a lot of people gas out in the ring not because they haven't done the road work. Right. They gas out because of adrenaline, so they've not calmed themselves down, and that comes from ring IQ. The craft, because this guy's not managing his breathing. He's not managing. He's not calm. So you're calm, so you can make him tired.
Bro, the journey, if you were to get a newbie in there, he would start off by going in there hard, and it's until later on that he'll start tweaking. Is that right, bro?
I mean, look, I think it just depends on the individual. You have to read. But let's say you get a kid who's new, he's going to be nervous, he's going to, he might just decide, I'm going to try to get him out of there quick because, I think I'm X, Y, and Z. Okay, if you see the psychology of that person who's that way. Okay, that means I'm going to move around. I'm going to manage him in the way that where he's really coming for you, but he's not getting you. So he gasses out, and then you've got maybe 40 seconds to actually win that round, or and so on. The rest of it, he's just chasing you, and you're resting. You're moving, you're resting, and he's doing a lot of the work. And that way, so I'm just saying it depends on the individual, but sometimes it's just managing that. I never look at, these days, I don't really look at like, let's say, winning the round. It's much more about managing that round, how we because in your 40s, you're not. It's training different. You're not, and it's not. Sometimes it's not about winning. It's more like, okay, how did I manage that round? How did I deal with this guy? Did he feel that he won that round, or did I really win that round?
And is that like a psychological thing?
I think part of that is all about psychology. It's all about psychology. If I know I've got the psychological edge on a guy, I know that. I'm like, I walk away. He might have won that round, but I know that I actually, he didn't, or sometimes it's like, I don't know if you've seen that, when Apollo Creed sits down, and he sits down with his, acolytes, and Apollo Creed goes, did I win? He goes, you won by points, but he goes, but I didn't beat him.
Big psychological.
You see what I'm saying? So he was haunted by that, as it were, and then that's the whole point. You feel, okay, you should have beaten him, but you didn't. And that's so he feels that he lost, whereas I walk away thinking I've won. You know,
I get that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you see, and that I take pleasure in it, because you're not boxing's a young man's sport. You know, you don't do it. I do it.
Well, yeah, yeah. What do you do it for, bro?
So I do it actually for the craft, for the mastery, for the discipline, and actually, you know, I do a lot of journalism that I do. It uses a lot of it's I mean journalism that I do is conflict. So when you're looking at conflict, you know, it recreates some of the adrenaline that you see in those sorts of situations.
Inside the ring.
Yeah, so when you're looking at when you're doing conflict, let's say, you know, in my job, you know, the similar excitement that you get and that calmness that you're trying to recreate, that you can recreate that in the ring. Actually, you know, you get that, you can train yourself to be calm in the ring. So when you are on the field.
Wait, bro. Wait. That's really interesting. Wait. So how do you apply those skills that you've learned in the ring into your life? Because now I wanna like cross borders and go into your personal life. You as a father, you as a man, you as a like how. Okay, so we've touched upon your unboxing and like how's that made you as a man, bro?
So look, boxing. Firstly, I believe every man should learn a martial art. And it's not because you have to go pro, or you know, I think what it teaches you learn about habit, discipline, consistency, all of those things, character. I think it builds all of those things, and you can apply all of those things in anything. If I want to master something, I know it's basically making sure you're turning up, making sure you're doing the drills, making sure you ask. All of those things you learn in boxing ring, you apply onto anything, right? But also that you also have to have grit. You know, no point complaining, because in a lot of boxing clubs, some of the boxing clubs, they're unforgiving. You know, it's not like, oh, can I have a rest, please? Because I remember, one gym, this guy he would punish everyone if we're complaining. There's no, and he did it for our own good. So, he did it for our own good, because in the ring, you can die, man. So he's doing this not because he's a sadist. He did that because it had to be done this way. So there's no room for
to get the job done. That's the only way that
So that means vomiting, in a thing and then carrying on. That's what you do. So it teaches you resilience, which of course in this day and age, which with its emphasis on mental health and all this kind of stuff, doesn't. So you just have an edge, I suppose, over other people that don't go through that, don't go through adversity. And I think it creates that. And I think if you look at, for example, the age that we live in, we have so much abundance and comfort.
Yes.
Yeah, which it actually erodes character. Erodes your character as a man. So...
Bro, I want to go off the tangent to boxing from now. I understand that you're a father of two. Yeah. One boy, one girl. How old's your eldest son now, bro?
He's 17.
Okay. So how does the background that you're coming from, how do you teach your son that?
So firstly, I mean, I taught my boy boxing since he was about 8 years old. I taught him young. And I think one thing that he had been given is actually he was just naturally, he had ring craft. He actually had ring IQ. He knew how to read. He knew what he was doing in the ring. From the time I took him to sparring and stuff like that. He could talk you through it, and he realized, okay, he knows what he's doing. Whereas there's no way I had that when I was his age, when I was that age. That's one aspect of it. But I also think to myself, look, I don't know whether that is being applied right now, right? Because he's young. But what I think is kind of those values. Firstly, look, he knows that his dad still boxes, in his late 40s. That to me that's a memory for him. That's a memory, because you're here to imprint. I think the way my philosophy of parenting is basically, 7 years you play with them, 7 years you discipline them, and 7 years you befriend them. So when you look at that, and if you follow that, and this is actually something from the Eastern tradition, Imam Ali talked about this, but so I kind of followed that. So like I want you, let's say if you're talking about from about year, when he's from 0 to 7, you're just playing compassion, all of this kind of stuff. Then you need to really temper his character, which is about obeying. You need to obey me because you need to obey the father. I don't care. I'm not going to explain to you. You need to obey me. Then at certain point,
bro, wait. Okay, so
from 7 to 14, you need to obey me. You need to listen to me.
Has there been a point where he's not obeyed you?
Okay, so that's where I'm going to come to. So around 14, I mean, firstly, okay, look, he's disobeyed me plenty when he was that kid. But
How'd you deal with that?
You discipline.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example.
Yeah, give me an example.
There was one time he'd nicked. We went to the shops. I still remember this. He got some jelly beans.
Yeah.
He'd nicked up some jelly beans. So what I did, of course, I discovered they'd nicked some jelly beans. So I went to the security guard first, and I told him, "Listen, bro, I'm going to bring him back.
Yeah.
I want you to behave like a policeman, blah, 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 you know,
Yeah.
so and so on." So he came back, and the policeman, you know, he behaved like a policeman. He felt really, really bad about it, gave it back. But, you know, he remembers that. That he's never going to do that again, you know, and that was it. Another time, I remember he swore, you know, he brushed his teeth with soap, you know, those kind of things. So, you know, that's discipline. And, so that's how, you know, we're talking at, you know, and as he gets older, you need to listen to him when he's at year 11, you know, when he's 11 years old, year 7, year 8, you listen to what I say, and there's not going to be any discussion. Yeah. But year 9, when he's 13, 14,
Right, okay. Yeah.
That's when, okay, I'm going to punish, but I'm going to explain to you now. It has to come.
So the dynamics changes.
Because then it's like he's at an age where you have to explain. So I'm going to say, listen, I'm doing this. Yeah. I'm doing this for X, Y, and Z reason. Before that, I want him to just learn to obey me, right? Because I have his interest, and that, you know, because if you cannot, you know, obey, you cannot follow, and then you can't lead. You can't lead. So you need to learn all of those stages. So you need to listen to me, obey me, or whatever. Yeah. Then at some point, I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this. You need to listen to me. And I'm going to explain why you need to listen to me. Yeah. We might have a back and forth, but you still have to do it. Ultimately, you still have to do it. Then we come to an age, and now remember, he's bigger than both of us. You know, you've seen that.
Yeah, I've seen him.
You know. Then now I'm at a stage where, okay, son, listen, I'm your advisor. Now it's you, because I've given you enough. You're a grown man. Yeah. You're a grown man now. Yeah. You know, I can say X, Y, and Z. Of course, we've got these rules and whatever, but you're a grown man, right? And you know what? At one point in life, when I'm an old man, you can be an oppressor towards me. So what keeps that is love and respect and so on. And I am here now as your advisor, as your father, someone who facilitates. But you are essentially a grown man. If something happened to me, you can look after the whole family. You can look after yourself. You know. But again, so that's one aspect.
Bro, wait, hold on. I want to pull something out of that. How do you maintain? You know, because he's at the age where, is he challenging hierarchy or like what's the dynamic between there in terms of power struggles?
No, firstly, look, a couple of things. I think there are issues with regards to respect. You know, he does respect. Okay. You know, I think it has to be built on respect. There are also times where you realize, okay, look, he's also what you call individuating. Is, you know, he is pushing back, and you're going to get a little bit of pushback. Mm-hmm. There are times when you're like, all right, this is not, if you're going to ratchet up, he's going to ratchet it up as well. Okay. You know, and that doesn't work. So you need to de-escalate, leave that, come back to it later or whatever. So there are other times, for example, where you got a young man who doesn't actually understand what his own physical presence is to women, to his mother, to his sister. And the dad is there.
So physical presence that you talk about. Yeah. Okay. His size, yeah.
It comes to a realization that actually, you know, when mum does something to him, he sees through like I could actually do. He's actually come to realize if I wanted to, I can do exactly what I want to do because he is a grown man, right? So
you can't tell me what to do, sort of thing.
Almost. So that's where dad comes in. Goes, hey, listen, you tap him because I see what you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah. Because of course I've been there. You're like, no, I see what you're doing. Stop. That's where the dad comes in and just stops him there and makes him understand that, listen, your job as a man is to provide and protect. And if you think about this, when we watch, for example, movies like, I don't know, let's say Scarface, or we look at all of these sorts of, you think to yourself, wow, you know, these guys, why is it that, you know, these guys are essentially bad men, bad people that we don't want to be. Why do we like them as men? You might be like, this guy is not.
Well, you said it's the principles they carry, right?
Well, what they are good at is the job description of being a man,
which is what
provide and protect. That's why they're good. You know, like you look at all of these. What are they good at?
That's on a base level.
They're just good at being. the job description of a man is this, they do this. That's why you look at it, you recognize, okay, they're morally bad, the X, Y, and Z. You just kind of recognize, well, yeah, that's why I like it. Do you see Carlitos with all of these kind of things? Why do we like them? They're not good, decent men, right? But they fulfill something that we're all, whether you are, a saint, you'll recognize, oh, wow, this guy is a man. And you like it. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, so when you go back to this, it's about teaching him. This is your job. This is what you need to do. At the same time,
bro, do you nip that in the bud? Like, okay, so he's acting up like that, like what you just said. He's say for example, he's squaring up. You
really need to pull him aside and say no. But also maturity is to teach him, and a man needs to understand that. Look, that you let women, that to be mature, to be a man, not a boy, a man is to actually make your daughter, your wife, your sister actually feel safe, completely safe and secure around her. Which means if they say X, Y, and Z towards you, that you're not going to blow up and you're not going to do X, Y, and Z, because that's what essentially a man is. It's not going to be, making that person feel frightened. Because
in their own home,
he's lost his temper, and that's emotional maturity. A lot of I think a lot of women, they say this about themselves, like we are much more emotionally mature. It's not necessarily the case, because emotional maturity applies to everyone, and what it actually is controlling your emotions, calibrating your emotions, not stunting them, not blunting them, but actually calibrating your emotions and actually receiving that criticism. Let's say you are held to account for whatever in the right way, and knowing how much emotions to use. And actual fact, they've done studies, by the way, that boxers or those people that do martial arts can actually read emotions much better than most, because they know if
that makes sense.
When in the ring, because they're studying this, they see this person's hurt, this person's not, and they read it much quicker. So this idea that I'll push back against a lot of people, that a lot of women might say men don't have emotional empathy, or no, they have emotional regulation, they have all of this kind of stuff. It's just actually sometimes emotional maturity is about actually regulating your emotions, understanding your emotions, and being appropriate, giving an appropriate response with your emotions. Because emotions are not bad, they're good. Emotions are very good. So that we went back in the beginning, we talked about I know that nervousness, that's an emotional feeling, and that's good, because that's information that I'm getting. And that's a good thing when you're getting this, but that's not how I make my judgment. It informs. These are senses that I have, but it informs my judgment.
It's what you
exactly.
do.
Yeah, exactly. But also, one shouldn't be scared of emotions. One shouldn't necessarily suppress it.
Bro, that's a really good point, because this is where we get confused in the fear of emotion, and then we let it control us. Where does that fear come from? Is it because I can't manage it? Is that why the fear is kicking in? Is because I'm out of control, so I'm just getting all erratic?
I mean, part of it, 100%. I think, look, a lot of people, they fear emotion. They think they're going to lose control. But actually, when you realize emotion, when you put emotions in the right place,
So just mismanagement then, or what?
It's mismanagement. It's actually creating that space.
What do you mean?
For example, I'll give you an example. So when you're sparring, what you're trying to do in sparring is to create a space between your being, let's say you get a flurry of punches and you're covering up and you're thinking, having that space, that clarity of mind to think, to respond to that chaos. Now, how do you develop that space? You create that space by sparring enough so you get used to what to do, so you can think.
Wait, bro. Okay, hold that for. So space. How would you translate that out of boxing? So
let's say, so when you understand this, let's say you are now in a confrontation situation.
Yeah, I'm about to argue
between let's say your son or your wife or whatever, and actually you're treating it almost as if it's a spar, where you are creating that space when you know the buttons are being pushed, or actually you're not necessarily, you create enough distance to be able to say, okay, you're talking to me in this way, I'm not going to engage here, I'm going to leave, and when you're ready to talk, we can go back to it again. Do you see? And that's the same.
That's the space. I get
space that you've created. But if you said you are X, Y, and Z, and I respond, I react, that's essentially not creating that space. And that boxing teaches you. I learned that from boxing. Do you see? And that's the same thing. Now look, a lot of people, when you know, for example, the address of the gutter, as it were.
I've not heard that.
Let's say, right, a lot of people might fear their emotions because they think, I'm going to lose control.
Wait. Hold on a second. Wait. That's another interesting thing. Do you think that they fear the emotions more than the actual situation itself?
Yeah, of course. I think they don't. Because they don't have a lot of guys. Yeah. What they do.
So it's not actually they think that it's on the outside, but it's really on the inside.
It's inside, because they think that it is to be feared, that it is a weakness, it is to be suppressed. Not at all, bro.
So they're fearing what's more on the inside than what is happening out.
You're not living a full life. You're living a half life, bro.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that? Listen, love is a very beautiful feeling and emotion, right? And men are capable of loving just as much as women.
Yes.
The proof of that is just look at how we are with our children. We love them, right? So we can love, isn't it? Absolutely. Right. When we get angry, this feeling, anger is not necessarily a bad thing. It's how you channel that anger, right? Again, you think you're going to lose control, right? These are emotions that you have not harnessed, you've not learned to control, right? In the right way. So the point is, because you fear that within yourself, you either stunt it, you don't want to deal with it, and so on. But whereas, for example, I remember,
bro, that's profound, man. Because I'm thinking this is it's like I can easily blame things from the outset, like it's this, but really, it's me. It's I can't manage my emotions. I don't know how to regulate. So what I'm gonna do? The next best thing is I'm gonna blame this situation, this person, that.
Or you suppress it. Bro. So I'm like. And people can hold you hostage to it as well.
How?
For example, you might find that because you have, let's say, you worry about, let's say, losing your children or something. This emotional attachment that you have maybe can get used against you. Maybe, I don't know, wife or someone can be used against you. Okay. But imagine then if that's happened and you've seen, you called the bluff, right? And there is nothing after it. I'll give you an example. Let me develop this. So Mabs, right? I'm going to say to you, listen, if you do this, I'm going to punch you in the face. Yeah. I keep on saying it, and you're feared, you're scared of it, right? And one day you said, all right, you know what? Go on, punch me in the face. Yeah. And I do punch you in the face. Afterwards, you're like, okay, is that what it is? You've lost the fear of it. Okay. And you don't, okay, all right,
so
let's...
I was more scared of
the thought of it. Yeah? Do you see? You're like, I've been hurt. Let's say we talk, a lot of guys, they might have had a previous heartbreak or something. I've been hurt. So all they do is just build a shell around that heart because they think, I don't want to feel that way again. But actually, no. Like, okay, it's not going to hurt. You can put that heart there again and it's going to be fine. You can deal with that heartbreak. It's okay. Yeah. It's not going to harm you again. In fact, you're not living a full life because you're not fully loving. You're not fully showing your emotions. I'm not saying that you start now or, putting all... No, I'm not talking about, I'm talking about just as, if you look at the older traditions, like if you go back to the past, you'll see that men and women, they wore far more colorful clothes. They actually lived the life in a very, very full way, right? And they were emotion. They expressed their emotions, their joy, and everything in a very full way. We don't do that because there is an element of fear. The element of fear that you're going to be laughed at, your emotion, that is seen as weak, or that you will not manage to control those emotions. And I think
bro, where did that come from?
For me, I think that part of that is modernity, part of us. I think the way relationships are these days, we're talking decades, it's not recent, but heartbreak, I remember someone gave me this analogy of, when you're looking at, let's say, if you imagine you've got two hands, right? And you put super glue on this hand, super glue on this hand, and you stick, right? And it stuck well for the first time. And then you take it apart, what happens? Skin gets taken off, isn't it? Now if you put super glue again and you stick it back in, it doesn't stick the same way. So what happens every time you're sticking and pulling away, pulling away, which is with a lot of modern relationships, your flesh comes out, you're not sticking as good. So those are the kind of things that maybe in at least our societies here, this is happening. And there is not a healthy kind of these emotions aren't dealt with, they're just suppressed. They're just suppressed. And it becomes this, it becomes these games. And I think that for me, I'm like, listen.
Bro, wait, give me an example of, okay, so you got suppression and then you got just not responding.
Yeah, that's called stunting. That's called basically blunting your emotions. So for example, look, I have no problem in, expressing my love for my son. I'll tell him, straight up, I love you, my son. I haven't heard your voice. I missed you. All of this kind of stuff. I'll say it. I'll say it to my daughter. I will express that. Now, a lot of people are, oh, wow, you're being a wuss. I don't care. That's how I feel. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
Bro, let me delve a bit more into that side now. So we've touched upon a lot of masculine traits, discipline, and just ring craft and how it's just transferred over to your personal life as a parent. What is it like raising a daughter, bruv? Can you apply the same principles?
Look, I think that one of the things that we don't have, we need to incorporate compassion. We need to have mercy, gentleness. We have to have all of those kind of things. With regards to raising daughters, it's a slightly different thing.
What's the difference? Give me an example of something.
Look, anyone who's got boys and girls, they'll know that they're different. Their temperaments are different. I find that the approach with girls is much more with gentleness. You do it with love. I have a relationship. I hope to God that will continue. But it has to be done with love and compassion.
What does that word mean, love? Because I hear that a lot, bro. Love, but there's so many different ways of what. Of course. When someone says love, what is that?
So, for me, it's much. Like we're talking about hugs. We're talking about sweet things. Remembering, calling, how you do. All of those kind of things. Whereas in the way that I wouldn't. My son's at an age where he doesn't necessarily want that. I'll give him a hug or whatever, but he doesn't need that. But my girl needs that. My girl needs the hugs and kisses or whatever, and I'll give that.
What does your son need at that age? Because he's now 17, bro.
Yeah, at this moment in time, what he needs from me is basically, Dad, I have this problem. How do I deal with this? Solution. Like, not solution, advice. Because in the end of the day, he needs to take that step. Advice.
That's the difference.
Yeah. How do I, and that relationship where I am his, consigliere, the one that advises, and that's how I see myself now, because he's essentially, quite autonomous. He does his studies on his own. I'm very proud of him that way. He studies, he's doing it, he knows what he's doing. So I remember when he did, I remember when he was doing his GCSEs, a lot of parents were like on him. We're on him, we were like, what, you're not doing enough or whatever. And it was really getting very, very difficult. So we've got a mutual friend. He said to me, listen, you're not the driver, firstly. You're not the driver. Push back, let go a little bit, let him make the mistake. Because that's the sort of temperament he is. He's got certain qualities which, it's actually from his leadership. So if he's going to be like that, if you don't listen, you feel. It's an old boxing term, but, so he's going to be like, all right, So I said, okay, I'll let him go. Because you know what it is? I'm thinking at 21, I want him to be with me, have that closeness. So I'd rather sacrifice, okay, he messes up a few GCSEs, So I let him go. I let him do what he's going to do. And I said, because he thinks he's going to walk, he's just going to get the top grades because of X, Y, and Z. He did well in his GCSEs. But I said to him, son, listen, the whole point is this. If you feel you could have done better, then you haven't done, then it's not good enough. Like you failed yourself, not me, because your grades, I'm content, I'm happy with that. But it's much more about you, because your values need to, your standard. Is that to your standard? Because if it's not to your standard, then you will say it's not good enough. You should have done better. If you feel that was the best you could do, so for example, I did well in my GCSEs, but one of my proudest things is actually getting a C in maths, because I was very poor at maths. I really did.
Me too, bro. I got probably about an F.
I did my best and I got myself a C, and it was like my biggest achievement, almost. Whereas, like if I got, any other ones, I'm like, all right, okay, I could have done better. But that was because I put everything into it. And that's the whole point. So, for example, in my A levels, I remember doing one of these subjects, and I got a B, and I knew I could have done better because I actually strolled through that. I didn't even half turn up. So I'm like, I thought to myself, that's when you failed yourself. You knew you could do better. So he went in his A level thinking, okay, look, I'm not going to make the same mistake this time. And he himself was a self-starter as a result of that. Had I been on him, I might have pushed him away. So the whole point was that he then learns how to, like, the values has to come from him, not me. Because look, especially in the job that you do.
You mean the decision?
The decision, his own values.
Okay.
I said to him, listen, look, son, the job that I do, I used to write letters to him. I actually put them in a little book for him as a gift. Look, the jobs that I do, some of it, if, you could die one day. You can die, especially with some of
You're a journalist.
Yeah. So if you're doing these sorts of jobs, it's a real possibility, bro. It's a real possibility that can happen. And I want him to, and I said to him, listen, son, I can tell you these things, but ultimately you have to do it yourself. These values must come from you, not me.
So wait, bro.
So you have to encourage those values.
Correct me here. Okay, so from grassroots, it starts off with the father giving values, standards, and that, and the example. And then after a certain point, then you're forming your own ones.
Yes. Absolutely. He forms his own values. Now, of course, you hope that they are influenced by you. And I think, the proverb, the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree is true. But, he has to form those values. He has to hold himself. And I think you've achieved it. If you've achieved your goals, if you have managed to give him the ability to set his own standards, right? It's about that. Because look, he should not be living up to your standards. He should be living up to his own standards. And those are the and that's where you're trying to encourage him. And that's where you'll be like,
bro, that's profound, because a lot of fathers feel like they're failures, or they're either the son feels pressure that he's not good enough, or that he could have done. But it's a different ballgame if you give them that chance to figure it out for themselves. You set the standard. You make your own choices.
But also, bro, like a lot of fathers need to hold them, set standards for themselves. Because I think that
That's another thing.
Yeah, a lot of fathers don't put standards to themselves. Look, listen, if you're going to encourage your son to do, go and do football or whatever, and you're a fat blob, that's a problem. I think that's a problem, because you are leading by example. If you're scoffing down, I don't know, crisps or whatever, and you're trying to tell no, you need to. I think the father has to lead by example, in my view.
Absolutely.
Because what the father does is give his kids memories. He gives those
Good or bad?
Yeah, well, they could. You're trying to give him good memories. My father used to do X, Y, and Z, because those are the things. When I always think, when you're gone, when you're dead, what did my father do? Oh yeah, my father used to read this. My father used to do this. He used to dress smart, and so on. And those are the kind of things that you're trying to do. You're trying to set those. That's the example that you set in him, right? And the father is the anchor of the house. He's not necessarily always seen, but he holds that house together.
Bro, give me an example of that, man, because that's deep. Like, so are we talking about the emotional example, or we like, or does it encompass the whole thing?
It's not just the emotional. When a father, what he does is kind of the way the ship is going, the way how he's holding the course. He's holding that course. He's providing, he's doing all of this kind of stuff. And when that father goes, you'll see that it really just dissipates. You'll see that boat is just going, and so on and so forth. So I think that's what the father does. And people don't necessarily sometimes appreciate that. It's not sometimes, because you have to realize our fathers, maybe they weren't necessarily there, but that there was kind of like their presence was felt, and they anchored it. There was the mother felt safe because they knew that the father was doing X, Y, and Z, and so on. And then when the father went, then you've got this.
Bro, that is interesting. You've just triggered something. Do you know when I was growing up, when I was young, I used to sneak out a lot. I used to like stay out late and that, but at the back of my mind, my dad would go out and I'll calculate, okay, so this is the time he's gonna go out. When he goes out, I'm gonna go out and sneak out and play, But then at the back of my mind, even his presence not even being there, but I knew he's gonna come back, that kept me on my toes. That kept me like, and that's him not, being actively present, but the fact that I know that he's in the background, like I'm gonna have to answer to him.
Yeah, and it's almost. I mean,
And that's on a minimal level, bro.
I mean, that's how. I mean, that's how essentially our religion works, isn't it?
Yeah,
If you think about it, that's like, yeah, God's in the, you know, in the detail, as it were. You know, it's there, it's present. So you know, it's the same kind of principle in some ways.
I'm just talking about the power, the impact of the father. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the father has that, and that's why the example. It's not necessarily that he has to, you know, because you have to look at, for example, the previous generation. They were hardly there in some ways. They worked hard. You know, they were hardly there.
That's bro. That's profound because look, check. Oh my gosh.
Look at, for example, nowadays a lot of fathers are very, very present. They give a lot of their time, but it doesn't not necessarily mean that the kids grow up any better with better character. That's not always present. It's about example.
Right.
Yeah, the father sets the example, the standard. And I remember reading this in Obama's memoirs. He said that the father.
Do they go hand in hand though? Like the standard and the presence. Can one work without the other?
I actually think to myself, yes. I think to myself, I'll explain what I mean. But just to go back to Obama, Obama said that the son is either trying to make up for the mistakes of the father, or he tries to surpass him.
Oh, okay.
Right. So remember, okay, I'm not saying that, you know, fathers shouldn't be present, but what I'm saying is, you know, if the father has to, let's say, go away to support his family, and he goes away for years, you know, it doesn't mean that, you know, if he's setting an example where he's providing and protecting, you know, the kids will know, like, you know, my father does this. We have a roof over this. We have all of these things because of my father. And that's a standard that, like, wow, okay, my dad did this, you know, even though he's not there, because many fathers were like that in the past. You know, and the kids grew up to be good men, you know, because the father did what he was meant to do, and of course the women,
bro, that's
made and also made the children realize the value of the father. That's one thing that a lot of the women of the past would do. They would make sure that the kid understood the value and the role of the father. These days, because sometimes they're not, you know, women. Or the mothers don't necessarily emphasize or make the children understand what the role of the father is, because they themselves might not know what the role of the father is, right? That has been muddied. So then, you know, you get, you know, fathers who spend so much time with the kids. They're like their friends. And I'm like, bro, I'm not your clown. I'm not a clown. I'm not your entertainer. You know, the father is not an entertainer. His job is not to do everything with. He's not your friend. He's much more than that. Do you see? So presence is not always, you know, a lot of, like, you know, kids should be able to find a way of keeping themselves occupied. I don't have to entertain you. Yeah. That is not my job as a father. You do this.
Bro, there was some interesting things that you just said. The two things that got brought to my attention. One is, what was profound from back in the day is the father was still able to lead the household even when he's not around that much, and also the mother backing up, reminding the kids what the father done. Now she's writing the script for what a father should be, or what isn't he doing. That's bro, that's taking me aback to realize this. You know, what is so we've gone in depth with your son, yourself. Let's read it back to your daughter now, bruv. How is the same outlook the same for your daughter?
So with regards to my daughter, what I think is, look, the first example that my daughter has for a man is me. Okay. That's her first experience of a man. So that standard again is important. Okay. How do I conduct myself as a man? You know, what does she expect from me, and what I convey to her? Because as she grows older, she, you know, grows into the full flower of her womanhood. She wants to, you know, have children, marry, and all this kind of stuff. The man that she chooses is going to be compared to me, whether I like it or not. So it's incumbent upon me to set a standard to make her understand. I mean, you know, make her understand, and we have these conversations about what it is to be a man, what it means to be a father, what it means to be all of those kind of things. So the closeness is very, very important between a father and daughter. And that's so important because then they don't have that damage. You know, and if they don't have that, what happens is the first guy that comes along chirps her, she falls for it. But if she thinks, wait, hang on a second, my father's like this. This is an idiot.
She got a reference.
She's got a reference. You know, and he's X, Y, and Z. Like, no, that's not the standard, and that's why you have to have that with your daughter, that close relationship with your daughter. You know, what I was going to say. There's one more thing. You know, when I was, and I've done a lot of coaching with young guys, and every single boy and girl actually, that, because you know, you take them on when they first come to you. A lot of these were referrals from social services and stuff in Croydon. First thing you ask them, man, where's your dad?
Right. So the boy and a girl, yeah?
Oh, a boy and a girl who would be referred to me. Where's your dad, man? It's like, not there. Not there. Always, every single one, bro. And you realize that what your job as a coach there is two things.
Right.
Firstly, is to teach him to temper his emotions. And you do that by actually teaching them boxing. Why does boxing work for these people? Because they recognize instinctively what force and power is. And that is in the father. Yeah. So when you take them on the pads, or sometimes you might say, all right, let's go for a little, you know, spar or whatever. And you say, oh, give me your best. And you just pop them one or two, you know, and they're like, ooh, you know, and they throw everything and you can control. And you say, listen, man, it's not that you're not brave. The reason I can do that to you is because I've controlled my emotions, this, that. They start realizing, oh, okay, so in order for me to be able to do that, I need to control my emotions. And that's how you start reeling them in. And then you build a closeness, you know, wrapping their hands, teaching them these kind of things. So actually making them, they instinctively realize what power is and what that coach has, and they want that. But that has also, if they want to be able to box, they also need to control their emotions. So then they start on that journey. And that's why boxing works so well, because it teaches the young men how to control their emotions. And once you can teach them, you can build up a relationship with them, and you become, I mean, I would look at them as my own, you know, as my own sons, children, or whatever, you know. So that's how it works, bro. And it's the same kind of thing, you know. With girls, it's slightly different because they need different things. They need the father's love, you know, and it's different from the mother's love, you know. And it's the standard that you set. You know,
it always goes back to the standard. Both ways, whether it be boys or the girls, it's a standard.
My father was like this. You know, that's what it is. And I don't, you know, it's not always about, you know, you do this and he's got lots of money, or he does this. No, it's about the standard, because you can make lots of money but be a bad man. You know, a bad example of a father, and you know the kids are going to grow up, you know, awful.